Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Judges, the second chapter, which basically the Lord puts a test, right, before Israel, to basically prove them concerning whether they would be faithful as their forefathers were, or if they would succumb to the influence of the heathen. Right, so this is the book of Judges chapter 2 verse 1. And an angel of the Lord Yahweh came up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt and have brought you onto the land which I swear unto your fathers, being the land of Canaan. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. So you are not to join yourselves to those of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? And when you read in the Torah, the Lord was explicit. In fact, some of the laws that he gave us were centered around us not doing the things that the Canaanites and the heathen nations that were round about us were doing specifically. All right, so the Lord is saying here via his angel, why have you not obeyed your end of the contract of the covenant? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, being the remnants of the nations of the Canaanites dwelling in the land, or the Hamites, because you had different tribes of them. But they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. See, so because you didn't drive them out, the Lord said, I'm going to repurpose them then, and they're going to be, basically for punishments and thorns to you. And their God shall be a snare unto you, meaning that it's going to be like a trap, right? One example is, imagine you being in a room with an adulterous woman that has an interest in you, right? And it's just you and her. That is a trap. It's a snare, right? Because especially if she's good looking, because she can, if you're not careful with you being in that setting, it's very easy, or to easier opportunity for her to be able to try and seduce or entice you. And so that's why the Lord said, by you being in this land, neighboring with these nations that you were supposed to drive out, them serving their gods, right, will be a snare unto you, because if you're not careful, you'll succumb to that and be influenced by them, considering that you're now basically amongst them. And it came to pass, and a lot of this is really stemmed from curiosity, because curiosity can be a very powerful thing, even controlling with just curiosity. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord Yahweh spake these words unto the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. And they came to the name of the place, and they called the name of that place Bochim. And there they sacrificed, and they sacrificed there unto the Lord. Now, this word here, when you look it up in the Hebrew, they have it translating to weeping, because they wept for this message that the Lord had said unto them. Verse 6. And when Joshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went every man unto his inheritance to possess the land. And the people served the Lord Yahweh all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord Yahweh that he did for Israel. Because at that point they had that guidance, right? They had the leadership that would keep them on the right track. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord Yahweh, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath Heres in the mount of Ephraim, on the north side of the hill Gaash. And also all that generation were gathered onto their fathers. So that older generation, eventually they all died. And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord Yahweh. Now, this doesn't mean that they had no clue who he was, but they weren't well acquainted with the Lord as their parents were. So, it was more like, well, they know him as, or they know him through what they're told, right? As this was the God that did this for us and did that for us and did this for us. So this is the God that you serve, as opposed to the older generation, which experienced as it says, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel, right? So the older generation, which experienced both the wrath, right, or the punishment, but also the miracles of the Lord firsthand. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh and served Baalim, which when you go into that name there in the Hebrew is Baalium, which is plural, right, for lords. But here it says Baal, and Baal means Lord, but the yum at the end makes it plural. So, Lord is a term, right? Not necessarily a, specific to anything. However, it has associations, right? So as you can see, it says supreme male divinity of the Phoenicians and Canaanites. So it was associated also with with one of the Canaanite deities, right? And that's why oftentimes when you see it says they worship Baal, it's really or Baalium, which are lords, it's referencing these other gods, right? These idols. But sometimes it's also referring to like a specific idol or a specific god of the heathen that was named Baal. It says, and they forsook the Lord Yahweh God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt. And they followed other gods of the people, or of the gods of the people that were round about them. This is why the Lord said it would be a snare unto them, because eventually they would, as it says, they forsook their God, right? They forsook the Lord that brought them there, and instead decided to serve these other gods, these idols, and bow themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord Yahweh to anger. And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtaroth. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them. Right, and these were the nations round about us. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about. So what does that mean? As we're going to see as we keep on reading, we became a prey or subject or weak before those enemies. So as to where, previously those that Israel didn't drive out of the land mainly became tributaries onto Israel, right? Because we were stronger and had the upper hand over them. But as I mentioned in that lesson, that was only temporary, because when we became weak, those nations that were round about us could take advantage of that and then flip the tables on us. And that's what the Lord had happen over here. That's what it means by us being sold to the hands of our enemies, meaning that we became a prey onto them, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies, right? So we weren't able to defend ourselves or fight back or overcome, right, our enemies that were round about us. Whithersoever they went, the hand of the Lord Yahweh was against them for evil, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed, because he did come and tell them that, because they they transgressed, right? They broke their side of the covenant. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. See, so the Lord still had mercy. And these judges were individuals the Lord put the Spirit on and raised up and was with them to basically give us relief from the oppression of our enemies. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went a whoring after other gods. Now, when it says they would not hearken unto their judges, because, we'll go into what it means, because it later on says that while the judges were yet alive, right, they would follow what they would say. But once the judge was like dead or gone, then they would revert and revolt and go back to idol worshiping. So when it says they didn't hearken unto their judges, it means that the judge would rule, right, and guide them for however long they were alive. But just as Joshua did, the judges would admonish them to say, don't depart from the Lord. That is what they didn't hearken to, because after the judge was dead, they went right back to it. But while the judge was alive, they listened, they followed it. But after they died, they didn't continue to hearken onto their judges concerning them remaining loyal and faithful to the Lord. So as it says, but went a whoring after other gods, a whoring because this was likened unto an adulterous woman going after other men beside her husband, and bow themselves onto them, and which is against the first commandment. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, right? So they turned from following the path that their fathers went in, obeying the commandments of the Lord Yahweh, but they did not so. And when the Lord raised them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it repented the Lord Yahweh because of their groanings, by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. So, by hearing Israel being vexed and crying and groaning and so on and being oppressed, the Lord would repent of the evil, and he would raise up a judge that would deliver them. And it came to pass, when the judge was dead, that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers in in following other gods to serve them, to bow down unto them. See, so when the judge, once again, when the judge was dead, they would run right back to it, and then they would be worse than before. They cease not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. So this is something they just continue to do over and over and over again. And the anger of the Lord Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he said, because that this people hath transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died. See, so the Lord said, nah, you know what? Now I'm going to leave those nations in here, and they're going to continue to be a thorn in your side because you've broken that covenant. That through them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep the way of the Lord Yahweh to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it or not. So the Lord said, I'm going to leave them in here, and they're going to be a test. And when he says I'm going to use them to prove Israel, it means to test them, right? To see, are they going to, keep the ways of their fathers and follow me or not? And they were pretty much already off to a bad start, a very bad start. Therefore the Lord Yahweh left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Joshua. And that's why during the time when we went through in the book of Joshua, they weren't able to drive out all the nations from the land. And that brings us to the end of the book of Judges, the 2nd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Recha Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.